Joe McDonough here with Brad Katona here for MMAEmpire.com. Brad, how are you? How you been doing, man?
Things are good here. Things are doing quite good here. So I'm just excited. I'm fighting, man. It's just over a week away. So I'm pumped. I'm excited. It's been a long haul.
And we're gonna get to that, but talk me through 2020 because obviously it was what it was, and I'm sure that played into why you haven't fought since 2019.
Yeah, not a great time to be a free agent. Just as we're leaving the UFC, there's no fights going on in the world. Like everyone but the UFC were putting. No, everyone but the UFC couldn't put fights on. It was just the UFC. So like even Bellator was on hold. Everyone was on hold. So probably stressed my management company out quite a bit. Always hearing from me every week saying, "Hey, any news? Any news? Like what's going on? Anyone interested? Anything?" It's like you're there at the dance with nobody. It's not a good feeling, obviously, but we kept on putting in the work. That's one thing you never have to twist my arm for. I'm always in the gym no matter what, always trying to get better, always trying to make those improvements. So I nearly had the opportunity to show it October 31st. My opponent, unfortunately, it was almost like things were too good. No injuries, everything's going good. Make it to Germany, get my COVID test, and I was like, you know what, it's probably going to be me. Just things are going too smooth. The flight over was quick. Everything's going perfect, and then all of a sudden, it's my opponent. It's not me.
Yeah.
So back to the drawing board. Keep on grinding away. And thankfully, I got a great deal with Brave, and they're putting on fights now, and they're having an event tomorrow where my teammate's fighting Jose Shorty Torres, and it's exciting times. We're back, baby.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that 2021 for you is going to be very busy. I'm sure that you're trying to get in there as much as you possibly can.
Yeah. I'm trying to stay active, and I'm looking forward to that. Braves a great promotion to be part of. They seem to be putting these events on without any incidents. So I'm excited.
And let's go back to the departure from the UFC. You were 2-2 in the UFC after the Ultimate Fighter. Great showing on the Ultimate Fighter. A champion on the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah, we can say 4-2 because those two guys are beating the show.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
The UFC top 15 now, so
100%. So what? And to add to it, you're a guy in your 20s. I mean, it's you're in your prime. It just. Were you surprised? Because I know as a fan, I know a lot of my colleagues were, what was going through your head when you get that call?
Your heart drops. I'm looking at from then on, it was just consistently bad news. I'm not going to say I don't know anybody would go through it. Obviously, people go through a lot worse, but it was tough. It's tough. It tests you. There's, I've heard people say, like it's hard to find the motivation. There was never any of that for me. I think I kind of got an unfair shake, and that happens. There's people who were in there who turned me down, and then all of a sudden I see them fight 6 months later. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, if I would have just accepted this one. Well, I accepted it, but if they would have just accepted it, maybe it would have been a different different outcome. But it's you can't always assume that life is fair. It's not. There's other bantamweights on a 2-fight losing streak. One, I lost to Marab, who's now top 10. Probably climbing into top 5 soon. I lost to Hunter. Personally, I still think I won that fight. I think I got kind of a rougher shake on the judges' scorecards. I don't think they really. There was a couple bad decisions on that card, and I don't think there was a couple. Cole Smith, a fellow Canadian, I think he should have won his fight as well. I just don't. It's not an experience commission, and I can sit here and complain. Oh, I should have gotten the decision. I just don't. It just. At some point, you just move on, and that's what I'm doing. I feels like even last fight, now this fight, it's all okay. Let's see if Brad's the real deal. Was his departure from the UFC just, or was it unjust? And that's, it's, I'm the same me that I was then, but with a little chip on my shoulder now. I got a little something to prove, and I've been really kind of digging into that for, rooting myself on that, like being like, okay, yeah, you almost forgot.
Yeah, and exactly. When you started that answer, you had said some people have lost motivation. You have done the opposite. You've gained it. That chip's there, and I'm assuming that on April 1st you have. I mean, you just kind of said it, but I'm assuming that you want to put on a masterclass performance.
Yeah, I just this past, since any of my losses, we can go back to the Marab loss. It's I wasn't going into that fight. Nothing's really changed. Everyone's like, I was losing motivation. There was this pressure. No, man, you're fighting in a cage. There's going to be pressure. I don't know how you can not be motivated. If you're not motivated, why are you doing this at that point? Like I never understood any of that. Where losses is people getting defined by the losses, like trying to restructure everything. I made adjustments, obviously, because I think it would be kind of strange not to make adjustments after a loss, but I just kind of dialed everything in and kind of stuck to the game plan, which was, put my best effort every day, work with the best resources I have available, with the best coaches that I can put myself in front of. And that's what I did. And that's what that's what I did since May 2008, when I lost to Marab, so I got almost 3 years of work that I'm going to be able to show off.
Absolutely, man. And, judging from what you're talking about, the motivation's been there completely. Ring rust, some people call it, a mirage. Some people say it's real. I'm sure you're not worried about it, but is there a part of you that, you haven't stepped in the cage in a fight, in 2.5 years?
Not really, man. I sparred with some really good guys. Guys, and I'll tell you, the night before and the morning of that spar, you definitely know you're fighting. Your body knows. Like it's been primed. I've gone out of my comfort zone a number of times this year. I started training at a new boxing gym, O'Rourke's boxing gym here. Actually right next to SBG, just coincidentally. But walking into a box gym and doing a spar, it's, you're the MMA fighter, you're the, former UFC fighter, Ultimate Fighter winner. There's a little bit of pressure on you, and obviously no one's going to let someone come into the gym and beat them up. So
Absolutely.
It's the first. It gets those nerves back in, and I've done a lot of that. I've always tried to get different looks, different, just getting out of your comfort zone. I think it's important, and it's not just the same training partners. It's some new sparring partners. It's some new looks. It's a different gym potentially, and so I'm honestly not too worried about it. I can perform. Being active is obviously nice. I remember the feelings. I can. When I picture fighting on April 1st, I can feel the cage, I can feel the canvas, I can, you can, if you've been to a fight, you can smell, it sounds weird. I've been able to visualize it and feel the experience. So I'm not too worried about ring rust. Really, I'm more excited to show off everything I've done.
Absolutely, man. And, talk to me about, 8-0 opponent. I believe he's been out of the first round one time. I mean, is there going to be something in this fight where you want to see him in deep waters and see if he can last?
He can start wrapped around my neck if he really wants, and we can go from there. And that's not being overly confident. That's just, it's just not being cocky or anything. It's really one of those things where I know the guys I'm training with, and I know the looks I get every day, and if he catches me, he's more of a submission guy from the looks of it. He's going for the finish a lot. And if you look at my record, I kind of go more the distance with later finishes. In the third round. If he can catch me, fair play to him. Then that's pretty much it. If anybody in this sport can submit me, you know what? Good job. And hats off to you. You know, I went with Bryce Mitchell. He wasn't able to put me in danger once in terms of an actual submission. So I kind of look at that and I go, well, is this guy better than Bryce Mitchell? And I'd argue no.
Yeah.
I'd argue no. Is this guy fighting at bantamweight, my natural weight class? Yes. You know, I fought Bryce at featherweight.
Yep.
So I look at that. But with all those things said, do I respect him? Absolutely. He said yes. Like, we got a lot of no's for this fight. We got a lot of no's. You know, he said yes. He you know, he's coming to party. So I have to respect that. I have to respect that little bit of crazy in him as well. You know, he goes for it, and you know, sometimes what is it? You miss 100% of the shots you don't shoot. So he goes for it, and he seems to have scored 8-0. So we'll see.
And you know, talk to me about camp. You know, over at SBG. You know, you already talked. I mean, you know, boxing, everything. You've talked about some of those crazy training partners that you train with on a daily basis. You know, so just talk to me about this camp. How good it's felt to kind of finally have an end date where, okay, X amount of weeks, then it's fight night.
Yeah, you know, really, this camp I've pulled back just a little bit. You know, normally coming up to a fight, you hear other fighters talk about it too, but you almost feel a little unwell. Like you feel a little sick, you feel a little run down. This camp, thankfully, I've pulled back just a little bit of the volume, just a little bit, just with the times we're in. You know, I really want to mitigate any risk to myself. I didn't want to get sick. I didn't want to get anything close to COVID, because you see what it's doing to, you know, athletes like Kamsat, and you know, I didn't want any of those complications. Pretty well for me, the risk versus reward was, okay, I missed one session, you know, a week more than I did last camp, but my immune system feels strong. I feel really good. You know, I still have energy, and I'm a week out from weigh-ins. A lot of that's contributed to maybe that little bit of pullback, but also working with Tristan Kennedy with keeping my nutrition on point. You know, it's been we started far enough out that it's a nice, healthy cut down. We're not overly stressed. Everything's looking best it's ever been. So at that point, I have a couple of years of work I want to show off. So it's really getting to the fight that's been the problem. It hasn't been any issues on my end. It's all been on other people. So really, for me, a lot of this camp was just keeping healthy, and I am, and I'm excited.
And I think I speak for the entire fan base that you know, we're looking forward to seeing those, you know, those 2 years of work in action. Now, you know, obviously the UFC departure, is the goal still to get back, or is that kind of like, you know, what was there too bad of a breakup with the UFC?
I'll put it this way: like I don't have any ill will towards them. You could, and maybe in my position you could. I just, you know, it is what it is. I'm kind of past that right now. I have a contract with Brave. I'm looking at getting that belt, and then we'll see from there. I'm just excited to be with the show, like Brave, who's building their name. They have fighters from all over the board, you know. So yeah, maybe the UFC after this. Maybe it's Brave after this. You know, it's you know, I have a number of fights I want to take care of here. I need to build back, obviously, regardless. You know, it's not like I can get one win and go back to the UFC. So finding a home like Brave to me is it's going to be an important time of my career, and I'm excited to have them on board as well as be on their platform. You know, they're putting shows on. They're putting some great shows on, some great fights on, and yeah, they're building themselves, and I'm happy to build myself along with them.
Absolutely, man. Tell me about Tough. You know, obviously winner of Tough, a great season, undefeated season. You know, Joe Giannetti, Bryce Mitchell, Tyler Diamond. You know, great names. Would you know, obviously with Dana White's Contender Series now, I most people have said that they'd rather Contender Series. So I want to ask you, someone who was in the house from start to finish and competing start to finish, is there any, you know, would you, if the offer came now, if you were back in your career and the offer came now and Contender Series came, which one would you rather do?
You know, I think I think a tournament like the Ultimate Fighter, I'm made for. You know, I really do. I value that experience, and you learn a lot about yourself going through it. Obviously, people go through much worse than being on a reality show where they cater to your
100%.
every need. Waking up in a mansion, and you're training every day for a dream contract. You know, but I saw fighters on the show start losing it, start breaking under the pressure, because it is a lot of pressure. Like it's a pressure cooker. And I went going in, and I said this to everybody. I said I always thought I'd do well in it. I always thought I'd be able to handle the stress. I've been, I haven't always had all the hands-on coaches, all the hand-holding my career. I had to pretty well beg for fights coming up. It was tough. I was the short notice call they'd call on 3 weeks and be like, "Hey, you want to fight this guy?" And he was no joke. You look at almost all my wins, and they're against legitimate opponents, legitimate records. There was one, I think, my second pro fight was at 155 on about a week's notice. I remember I was eating carrot cake, and my coach called me, and that was the one easier fight you'd say I had. I've always handled these, because of that upbringing of my career, because of that road. I didn't have the perfect opportunities that a lot of the Americans have, where they can fight every weekend, every second weekend they can get an opponents, So I think that made me a perfect candidate for the Ultimate Fighter, where, it's stressful, you're around your opponents. I just thought I'd be able to handle it much better than everyone else, save my energy and save it for the fights. And I think it showed in my appearances.
And that you did, and also another thing that, you don't get to do in Contender Series that you do get to do in Ultimate Fighter is not very often that you get to train with, DC and his team, or Stipe and his team, champions, the best of the best, on a daily basis. Last thing for me here before I let you go, any like behind, what was the most fun moment? For some reason, I think it's gonna have something to do with either John Gunther or Bryce Mitchell, just because those guys are insanely funny. So what was the most funny moment, I guess, on the show?
Oh man, we're going back a ways, but most of it to me was just, it wasn't any one big event. It was just the little Bryce Mitchell, just him being him. He's a character. I like the guy. I'm very happy for his success. And on the show, there's just so many moments. Like I don't know if they had a chance to show them all. Just some of the stuff he'd say. He's just real, man. He's just real. Like he's not putting on an act. He's a cool dude, and to really get a feel for him, kind of had to meet him in person, especially. I remember, I forgot, like someone needed something. It might have been in the finale or something. He pulls out his pocket knife, and it's just like moments like that where you're like, dude, you brought a knife to the Ultimate Fighter house. I think he brought an actual bow that they confiscated, because obviously you can't bring a weapon into a reality house.
And then he made one on the show.
And then he fashioned one on the show. He brought the flint from home and everything to make the arrowhead. Stuff like that. I think was cool. It was just a lot of great people I met on that show, and to me it was a great experience. Listen, is it easy? Absolutely not. Am I glad I did it? Absolutely. I'm very happy I had that experience. That was a cool season, and now we finally are starting to see the Bryce Mitchell that we all got to know on the show, and he's getting a lot of success from it. You have to be happy for him, because everyone on the show knew he was going to be, if he just had the platform, he was going to be,
exactly what he's turned into.
Exactly what he's turned into, so you gotta love it.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of interviewing Bryce a few times, and after that, awful injury to his groin, he started the interview by saying, "Yeah, my balls are fine." So it's just Bryce Mitchell, man. Well, Brad, thank you very much. I can speak for everyone when I say we are very much looking forward to seeing you back in the cage at Brave on April 1st.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.